All right. Good evening, everybody. I think we're going to make a short presentation. As you know, tonight's an open house, so everyone's circulating and providing feedback is what we are hoping to achieve tonight. We just wanted to take the opportunity to share some of the results and provide some perspective on what you're seeing in the room this evening. By show of hands, how many people attended the kickoff event? Attended our kickoff presentation on Monday. A lot of you, but not everyone. So thank you for coming back. We are doing this Charrette exercise this week, partnering with the city to develop the 2050 master plan. My name is Paul Lippens. I'm with McKenna Associates, and we're consultant planners and advisors working with the city on this wonderful and important project. Could my colleagues also raise their hand and identify themselves? We got Irvin over here, Adam Cook with Seamless Collaborative, and Mike is in the back, Mike Campbell, our resident architect and designer. What we've kind of been doing, and we started on Monday, really big picture, and we're trying to, through the week, get more focused on developing recommendations that we have fairly good understanding that there's broad community consensus so that we can create a draft document for consideration by Planning Commission and City Commission. So with that, there's a couple events, exhibits that you see in the room that if you were here on Monday, you may have already provided some feedback on, but if you're here tonight, this would be your time to give us feedback. So this exhibit here to my left is a feedback that we're hoping to incorporate into the next future land use plan in the city. So we've kind of grouped land uses according to the previous future land use map, and that's what we want to understand and potentially propose some revisions to coordinate that plan with the zoning ordinance that was conducted with the city over the last several years. So looking at the multifamily, or we call it mixed residential areas, higher density residential areas, the tech and manufacturing uses, the business uses and corridor business uses, the residential or neighborhood uses, and then parks and community facilities. So that includes not only the wonderful park system that the city maintains, but also other sites like this one, public resources, and of course a CMU campus I think is shown in that green color as well. So what we're asking you to provide us with some guidance with in this exercise is, in each of these areas, what are the things that maybe could be fixed, that could use a little help, and what things are really great as they are and they should be preserved, or those are keep resources, and then what are the aspirational goals in the community. So what should we aspire to achieve in the next 30 years. And so please take some time to read some other comments and provide us with some comments here. We're also asking for some feedback on overall city goals and the vision. So on the board to the right of this exhibit over here is what's your vision for Mount Pleasant. Really this is a keyword thing. If you can give us one or two words that you think the city will be in the future, that's going to help us craft an overall vision to include in this master plan. And then in working through a review of past planning efforts in the city, we've focused in on what we think are the 5 primary goal areas, and we're asking for feedback on those as well. But we think the city is interested in sustainable land use efforts, connected mobility systems, focused redevelopment, exceptional parks and public spaces, and innovative services. So on this board, we have objectives that were created from past plans and from our initial engagement with the city on the project. And we're asking you to just place 2 teeny dots per per board for your favorite two objectives or the two objectives you think the city should prioritize. And that's something that I think would be great if you could take the time to do while you're here this evening as well. If you have general ideas about the citywide system, about the assets that are in the system, we have a map, a large map of the entire city in the back, and I like to call this the kitchen table. So stop by and share what are you thinking, and write down some notes on the city for us to take a look at. And then finally, in the spirit of generating alternatives, the city had cued us into 3 important sites that represent the development vision and can actually be somewhat of a model for other important sites in the city as well. So on the far left here, we have some alternatives for the Mission Street corridor. We do want to provide some guidance on the development of the Mission Street corridor as part of this plan, and you'll see a number of alternatives there. These drawings show a lot of different concepts, and what we've been doing in the past few days is exploring alternatives. Your feedback on these alternatives will help us generate recommendations. So take a sticky note. If you see something on this drawing you like, please let us know. If you see something or if you don't see something on the drawings that you really think are important, if it's a recommendation from another effort, if it's something that people in the community have been working on for a while, let us know by putting that on so we can incorporate it into the recommendations. So we've got Mission Street in the center. This is redevelopment for the town center area just to the east of the building we're in now. And then here we have the North Industrial area at Pickard and Main Street really is the central intersection here. So, please take a look, and I'm sure you've been here a bit, you've been talking to us about this. I'd also like to take the opportunity just to walk through some of the work that we've done in focus groups over the past 2 days as well. We met with stakeholders to discuss transportation improvements, neighborhood improvements, issues related to coordination with the CMU, and parks. Thank you. That was the big one. What we did was we asked, and we actually had very good participation at these events. The rooms were full, and we asked people to tell us what they thought the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats were. So you see we've got good notes, and what we're going to do is translate this into objectives and projects. So all of this information we're going to relate to overall the city's goals. But some of the strengths of the transportation system, people noted great roads in the city, short commute times. For weaknesses, they noted that the major thoroughfares are aesthetically unappealing and that there's a perceived parking problem. And there's a lot more, but I'm just kind of going through some highlights. For opportunities, there was the comment that Mission Street is really a substantial barrier between the east and west sides of the city, and that the zoning ordinance was looking for density where the system needed to be addressed to accommodate that density. For threats, high speed limit, the change on Mission Street from 35 to 45 was seen as a threat to achieving substantive change, and that designers were using outdated design models and focusing more on traffic movement than on people was kind of standing in the way. And opportunities, oh, I did that one. Oh, I got that one. All right. So then we met with the university or people interested in helping the city learn about planning for and around the university area. Some of the strengths related to having CMU in the city was that the city has a higher than average education rate, and that the campus is safe, and it created safety in the surrounding neighborhoods because of their influence. Weaknesses, that it was difficult to leave campus to go somewhere else, and so CMU feels like a commuter school, and that during rush hours, parking lots made it hard for people to get around. Opportunities, addressing some of the connectivity between campus buildings and to foster the creativity, use the creativity on campus to benefit the entire community. Some of the threats, the city or people expressed that there was not enough retention of the diverse students who come to CMU to contribute to city life, and that the university was facing a declining enrollment. When we met on housing and housing in the city, the strengths that were noted was that Mount Pleasant is a great place to grow up and a great place to have a family, that the neighborhoods were close to downtown, and that the community had a walk score of 89%, so it's already a very walkable place. Some of the weaknesses related to housing, neighborhoods were hard to name, that they kind of lacked in individual identity, and thus kind of blended together. And then there was a note about the large percentage of people in Isabel County that live under the poverty line. Of course, we do know that that's somewhat influenced by the number of students in town, but it's still important to note. For housing opportunities, there was many comments made about the aging student housing stock, and that presented an opportunity to create new housing and possibly partner with MISHDA on the accepting of housing vouchers. That rent was kind of too high and offered an opportunity for people to invest in home ownership, because the mortgages are affordable if we can help people find homes. Threats for continued focus on housing, that there's a large population in poverty, which was mentioned, and there's expected, since a large number of seniors own homes, as seniors look to move into independent housing and get more services, there may be a large sale of homes in the city. Moving to parks and recreation, we heard a lot of strengths in the parks and recreation system, walkability to parks, and having a good volunteer and civic community that help to take care of the parks. Weaknesses, it's a hard or a funny weakness to have, but this city has such a great park system. There's a feeling that new visitors really don't know how great it is and how to find it. And partly improving wayfinding to sign parks was seen as being important. For opportunities related to parks and recreation, improvements to accessibility to the river, and ecotourism was seen as a pretty large opportunity to advance the park system even within the region. The threats, we've heard a lot about the 2017 flood, and the parks in the floodplain certainly are a good thing. They offer the opportunity to do natural resource preservation, but it also brings a certain amount of difficulty in planning for those parks, and recognizing that the floodplain is important to protect. Another threat was just the overuse of parks, and making sure that enough time is dedicated to park maintenance. So we wanted to also share with you a little bit of what we've heard related to the land use goals, and I was going to ask Irvin to help me with this part of the presentation. Just a little bit of feedback on what your neighbors and colleagues are telling us about the important assets in the community.
So first we're going to go through mixed residential with fix, keep, and expire. And some of the things I saw was improved quality of the building and restoring multifamily north of High Street. So there's a bit of a demand for multifamily. For Aspire, for mixed residential, they want a corridor to downtown, so connection to multifamily buildings to downtown. And then there was a high demand of housing, but not for students. So there's like a glut of housing for students. So there's more housing needed for not students. This one didn't have any keep. So for tech and manufacturing, there's a desire to have more of it. If you look at the future land use, there's not a lot in the city that's dedicated to tech and manufacturing, and they're kind of around the outsides. And within that, there are parcels that are empty. So lots of vacant parcels, and it's sparse. For keep, there's a desire to have trees, keep trees in industrial, that's always good. And there was a desire to keep it widespread across the city. So expire, west side development, and I think this talks more to, there's no industrial on the west side, and there was also a desire to have green space within industrial. So that's more like landscaping. So it was a desire to have landscaping be green, the industrial area be green with trees, to look like the rest of the community. So business, fix. Mission Street, it's not walkable, it's not bikeable, it's pretty dangerous, it's tough to cross. That's something that should be fixed. And another comment towards Mission Street that stuck out, there's a lot of wasted space. So there's a gap, and you look at the intersection, it's a huge gap, and a lot of concrete, almost like a concrete sea. And there's a desire to have a boulevard approach, which might go over in more of the designs. So keep. Downtown staff has wonderful events. There's lots of talks about events, things going towards diversity, celebrating downtown, and trees and green space. Aspire. So there's talk about helping the stove tech up. This is like giving them phone numbers, emails, websites, and then there's a desire to have less chain restaurants, so more local restaurants. Residential, fix, there wasn't a lot of low-income housing. So there's a need to, there wasn't amenities for low-income people to fix their houses, so there was a desire to have them access to monies, and that was marked twice, so that's why it kind of stand it out. And I consistently hear sidewalks aren't shoveled, and the difficulty to cross the city and walk across the city. On campus, they're shoveled, but within the city, they're not. So maybe shoveling ordinance. Residential, desire to have trees and boulevards. That's kind of the consistent theme across multiple, the desire to have trees. And residents really like the yearly leaf pickup and the Christmas tree pickup. So that's something that residents like. And to Aspire, even though you're already walkable, there was an emphasis saying we still want our walkable neighborhoods, which is good. And then I guess the next comment goes more towards multifamily, and that's more multi-level townhouses downtown and walkable, so density downtown. For parks and recreation, fix the flooding. I know that's really hard to do. They're in a good spot, and it's really tough when you put a new playground in and it floods and it kind of ruins the playground. And then there was a desire to promote community events more, like Man versus Mountain, and that's not promoted. People don't know about it, and there needs to be more signage for events like that to maybe draw attention towards the parks. Parks, keep. We have the best park system. That's a strength. It's really good. and then keep the river clean from pollution. So I guess that's in the wrong category, but it's important. Recreation expire. So there was an aquatic center, and that comes for the need for swimming lessons, teaching the residents how to swim. And that came up over and over again, how to like fix that problem. So there's a opportunity for the recreation system. And once again, more events like Man versus Mountain. That's it.
All right, thank you, Irvin. Thanks again, everybody, for coming out tonight. Tomorrow night, we do have a final presentation that we're working towards. One of the things that we hope to come out of tonight's work and tomorrow's work is some recommendations for the future land use plan and the future transportation plan for the city. Basically, filtering these alternatives into some proposed recommendations. So if you're interested in providing feedback, please return tomorrow night. And if you are also interested in providing some more specific feedback, you can visit Mount Pleasant or MT Pleasant 2050.com, and there is a link here to take surveys, and a lot of the feedback you could provide here in person, you can provide us online, or if you get home and you think you forgot something, you can provide that input to us online as well. So stick around, we're here till 7, let's continue conversations. Thank you, everybody.